Hi everyone, welcome to the Bitcoin Sage Show. I'm your host Patrick, and let's get started with some exciting news in regards to Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. I'm going to start with this one. Actually, the CBOE had a newsletter that they sent out, and they had some articles in it. I'm going to include those. I think they're very, very interesting and a great way to learn. So this article is specifically about hedging Bitcoin with the XBT Bitcoin Futures. So I recommend taking a look at these posts that they're making. There's actually some really good content. So I'll include that in the description on the video and on the post at bitcoinsage.com. Next, a link to a Bitcoin ETF could launch in the next 6 months. So that's some very exciting news, and it's specifically, hopefully they can get this ETF launched, unlike the Winklevoss ETF that was rejected by the SEC. So that's very positive, and that should also bring in a lot of people who will probably end up buying Bitcoin through an ETF rather than directly, at least on the mass scale. Next is a survey. Most Bitcoin investors are expecting even fatter returns in 2018. It's exciting that people think that. I think that also sets us up for a bit of a correction, and a bad one. So I don't know if more and more people are coming in here thinking that Bitcoin's going to reach $1 million by the end of 2018. There's a chance it will probably get up to 100,000 or 200,000, but we also have a really big chance of there being a big crash because of that. So watch the investor sentiment, keep that on your radar. Something interesting here from Canada, a Canadian, their exchange venture just approved a crypto mining company called HashChain, and they're launching on Monday. I'll be watching that carefully and seeing if I can get in on that one. Pretty much, as you can see, more and more companies are just adding the technology element or blockchain or cryptocurrency. I think in this case, this is a mining company, which is actually great because it's an actual producer in the industry rather than just me slapping on blockchain to my website or saying that we're involved in cryptocurrencies by owning a little bit. There's a lot of those companies that will be coming out, but there's also a lot of interesting companies like this that I think will come into the space, especially after the big hack of NiceHash. Next is Crypto Watch. The Bitcoin Cash price just surged 24% in the last 90 minutes. Bitcoin Cash continues to rise. I was a big proponent and buyer of this at the lower levels, and I've been watching it rise up now. We'll go over the chart a little bit later, but there's some exciting stuff happening with Bitcoin Cash. And I think that's in two ways. People wanting to transact Bitcoin quickly, but even more so, I think people looking at an alternative and a cheaper alternative to Bitcoin. And I think that's playing a larger part in that. Next, Easyjet out of Europe picks Coinvesting to educate their flyers on crypto. So that's neat that there's more and more of this kind of coming out, and people want this information both in their in-flight magazines and TVs and so on. Another one is Switzerland's crypto finance raises 13.7 million euros on the road to a banking license. This is exciting. Like I said, there's a few companies out there that are starting to kind of really line up the right things to have proper digital assets and a banking license. And I think at that point, things will really change. So these are really exciting things that are happening. Arise Bank was another one we looked at the other day. Bitcoin hedge fund return is 25,000%. So if you had invested back in 2013, you would have 25,000%. These are the kinds of things that I think are getting people to still put tons of money into Bitcoin and are just continuing to plow in as much as they can. At this point, I still think Coinbase is, and how many users they're bringing in a day and how much they're allowing people to buy is a greater factor in whether Bitcoin prices go up than anything else. This post here, the Bitcoin boom in code we trust. Interesting article. I can't see it because of the paywall, but you can see it if you go to the link at one at a time. I just happen to have 2 New York Times articles up. Next is watch out for correction in Bitcoin after parabolic rise. Again, I would advise that you have a plan, that you be invested in Bitcoin, if you're in it for the long run, I don't think you have to worry about it as much. If this is a big deal and you've invested a lot of money, make sure you're hedging this correctly. And there's lots of ways to hedge, and I would advise you to kind of look into that a little bit more. Next is Chris Berniski. Sorry if I butchered your name there, Chris. He wrote a fantastic book called Cryptoassets, The Innovative Investor's Guide to Bitcoin and Beyond. I downloaded it on Audible from Amazon, and I just love this book. I think everybody who wants to invest in Bitcoin or owns any cryptocurrencies of any kind needs to read the entire book, you know, or listen to the book on Audible so you don't have to read it, and go through the entire thing. You can see a link on Bitcoin Sage on the main page, or if you just go to bitcoinsage.com/cryptoassets/. So either just go to Bitcoin Sage, click on this, go to the website, it'll drop you into Amazon where you can pick up a copy of the book. The audiobook's obviously never out of stock, so I would go with that, or the Kindle if you prefer. The hardcover seems to be out of stock because they just probably can't keep up with the demand. Fantastic book, I highly recommend it. Let's jump to some charts. So as you can see here, Bitcoin is falling apart a little bit. It seems fairly negative over the last little while, over the last day or two, maybe even like the last 3 days, 2-3 days. We're starting to see some negativity and some pressure coming on to Bitcoin. Again, we did make a great run, almost hit the 20,000 mark. See if we re-energize to still make one more run for that, but I think we'll probably consolidate for a little bit here. Let's watch these levels and see what happens. Let's get started as well. I think I did not share the coin market cap charts for today. I apologize for that, everybody. Let's get started with the top 10 coins for today. So today's is Bitcoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, Ripple, Dash, Neem, Monero, IOTA, Neo. So let's start with Ethereum after our Bitcoin chart here. And Ethereum is on fire. So as we said, Bitcoin going a little bit sideways. We're buying Ethereum at 0.376 and watching these levels very carefully. So once it passed 0.045, that's where I start to kind of use this now as my stop limit and let it ride a little bit further and see where we go now that we're heading up in this direction. But very positive for Ethereum. Keep an eye on that. Next, let's go to Bitcoin Cash. Man, I'm in love with this one. It has been on fire since we had a strong buy at 0.107, and as you can see, the first bit of resistance at 0.127, and it's continuing up and up from there. So we're gonna include a next line up, which is 0.142, and it looks like we're heading in that direction. I added actually one more target here of resistance at 0.166 as well. So amazing moves. Make sure you protect any wins that you are having, and make sure you let things ride so you take advantage of some of the big moves as well. I enjoy using resistance levels to help see where things are bouncing off of, and also using those for stop limits to ensure that we take advantage of the rides as they go up. So let's see, next is Litecoin and then Ripple. So Litecoin also working its way up, banging through some of this resistance. So it looks like we just broke through that resistance at 0.0194, and that's great. I think I was waiting for this actually. I've been long since this position here. Again, just using some BitMEX to go longer. We do own some Litecoin at these lower levels, but this is really positive. Litecoin has been on fire. Next one up is 0.02. So we should see that later today. Next, I'm going to jump to Ripple. Ripple's been kind of consolidating sideways, but still moving up and floating upwards. So expect some sharp moves to the upside on Ripple in the next little while here. We have two targets set for Ripple, 4736 and 5388. So we should see those in the next few days. Let's see what comes after Ripple. Ripple, let's see, Dash and then Neem. So Dash, where are you? Dash saw a nice little bounce and has continued that rise upward. So we've got a couple of targets for Dash, 0.075 and 0.808. We should see some upward movement as we kind of break through some of this resistance that we're hitting into right now, actually. So expect some movements from Dash as well. Next is Neem. And as well has been on fire for the last few days. So as you can see, it's taken off from our first buy level of 31.98, now blazing through 45.90. So Neem is on fire over the last 2 days. Yeah, the last 2 days have been fantastic. So increase your stop losses, watch for these levels, and make sure we use these as support going forward. So they start as resistance below, and once we bang through them and get up, they should turn into support, and that's what to watch for. Let's see, what else do we have? Monero, as you can see here, Monero's finally starting to break out. It's messy, but looks like we're working hard to break out. The upside on Monero, the first resistance level is about 0.021, and then the next target is 0.024. So I'm expecting some interesting stuff to happen with Monero over the next few days. Watch those levels. Let's see. I think we talked about Ripple already. That's ready to go and set up. IOTA and Neo. Look at that. Look at that. And that just happened over the last little bit. So IOTA, we were watching carefully. It was bouncing off of some of our levels here, staying under the resistance, and then it just blew up. What I love is watching some of these lines and seeing how close our resistance was. So the first one was here, blew through that, went up, and then the next one blew through that. And so at 32,181 sat was the resistance level, and you can see basically almost bounced off of that resistance and are now consolidating up. So great news for anybody who is holding IOTA. Once it broke through resistance at 23,000 sat, 24,000 sat, that's kind of the buy signal, and hopefully it'll be able to keep some of these wins going forward. Neo has not kind of done anything yet. Not what I'd like it to do. Everything else is just on fire at this point and doing really well. And the correlation between these altcoins moving with Bitcoin is very, very tied together. So be careful and watch Bitcoin. If the price continues to kind of trend sideways or downwards, then you should see some fantastic moves as we've seen over the last 3, 4, 5 days in these altcoins. But if Bitcoin starts rising up and going past 20,000, then expect probably a correction. So make sure you watch that when you're setting your stop limits. So Neo's passed through our first bit of resistance here at 0.003795 and is consolidating and work its way forward. I'm still hoping for it to break through some of this resistance line, and once that happens, I'll be long with my final position. So I have about a half a position in already, and just waiting for that second half once we break through, and we're going to start targeting 0.0047 as well as the higher target of 0.0062. So Neo has a lot of room to go still. Everything else has been on fire and moving quite well, so keep your stop limits tight. Make sure you protect your profits and don't overtrade. Make sure you're not looking at these time frames too much, but all the charts that we sent out yesterday, we've hit pretty much every single one of those levels. Make sure you're taking profit and make sure you're rising up on your stop losses so that you can make sure to protect the profits that you have made. Anyways, everyone, have a fantastic day, and let's trade some Bitcoin and some altcoins and make some money.